Here's a number that should scare you. 10. If you're 40 years old right now, you have roughly 10 working years left before the window to build serious retirement wealth starts to close. Not close forever, but close hard. The math is brutal. A person who starts investing aggressively at 40 has to work twice as hard as someone who started at 30 to end up in the same place. Compound interest doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care that you had kids, or that your 20s were expensive, or that nobody ever sat you down and taught you this stuff. It just does the math. Now, I'm not saying this to make you feel bad. I'm saying it because the 40s are actually the most powerful decade you have left to completely change your outcome. Most people waste this decade on a kitchen remodel and a lease on a car they absolutely cannot afford. You're not going to be most people. This video is your roadmap. Here's the cruel joke about your 40s. This is statistically the highest earning decade of your entire life. Your salary is probably the best it's ever been. Maybe you got promoted. Maybe your business finally took off. Maybe you're just further along than you were at 28, scrambling to cover rent and pretending you understood your 401k. And then life hands you the bill. Because your 40s aren't just your highest earning years. They're also your highest spending years. By a lot. Kids are at their most expensive right now. Sports, braces, school trips, and suddenly everyone around you is talking about college tuition like it's perfectly normal to spend $200,000 on a degree. Your parents might be getting older, which means your time, and sometimes your money, starts going in that direction too. You are being pulled from every angle at once. And then there's the lifestyle thing, the quiet killer. You've worked hard. You've earned a nicer life. And honestly, that's not wrong. The problem is when nicer slowly becomes, I'll figure out the retirement stuff later. Later doesn't exist in compound interest math. There is no later. There is only now, and the consequences of now. So that's what we're doing today. 5 milestones. Real numbers, no fluff. Hit these in your 40s and you are going to be okay. More than okay. Let's start with the one nobody wants to talk about first, because it's the most uncomfortable. Bad debt. I want you to think about every credit card balance you're carrying right now, every car payment, every buy now, pay later thing you clicked on at 11 at night because it was 40% off, and you'd had 2 glasses of wine, all of it. Here's the thing about bad debt in your 40s. It's not just expensive, it's a leak in your ship. Every dollar you're paying in credit card interest, typically 19, 22, sometimes 27%, is a dollar that is completely, entirely, 100% dead to you. It doesn't build equity, it doesn't compound, it doesn't grow into anything, it just vanishes. Straight into the pocket of a bank that already has more money than you will ever see in your lifetime. And I know what some of you are thinking. It's just a small balance, it's not a big deal. Let me show you what that small balance actually costs you. Say you've got $8,000 on a credit card at 22% interest. You pay the minimum each month, which most people do, because minimum payments feel manageable. At that rate, it takes you over 30 years to pay it off, and you end up paying nearly $24,000 total for $8,000 of stuff you bought years ago. A TV, a vacation, whatever it was. That purchase is now tripling in cost while you sleep. That is not a small deal. That is a wealth-destroying machine running silently in your basement. So here's what you do. 2 strategies. Pick the one that fits your brain. Strategy 1, the avalanche. You list all your debts from highest interest rate to lowest. You throw every single extra dollar at the highest rate debt first. Minimum payments on everything else. When the first one is dead, you roll that freed up payment into the next one. You keep going until it's all gone. This saves you the most money mathematically. It's the cold, logical approach. Strategy 2, the snowball. Same concept, yes, but you attack the smallest balance first regardless of interest rate. You get quick wins, you feel momentum. Psychology kicks in and keeps you going. Dave Ramsey has built an entire empire on this method. And honestly, if the avalanche felt like homework and you quietly quit 2 months in, the snowball wins. Because the best debt payoff strategy is the one you actually stick to. Now, car debt. I need to address this separately because people treat car payments like they're just a normal part of adult life, like utility bills, like gravity. Of course I have a car payment. Everyone has a car payment. No, not everyone. Genuinely wealthy people drive paid-off cars, or they buy used, Because they understand that a car is the single fastest depreciating asset you can own, outside of a casino chip. Your goal, by the time you are 45, is zero bad debt. None. Credit cards paid in full every month. No car payments. The only acceptable debt in your 40s is a mortgage on a home that is not underwater. Hit that milestone, and you've just freed up hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars every single month. Money that is now yours to actually build something with. Okay, so let's say you've looked at your retirement accounts recently, and the number staring back at you was not exactly what you hoped for. Maybe it was underwhelming. Maybe it was genuinely alarming. Maybe you closed the app immediately and decided to make a sandwich instead. You are not alone. Not even close. A significant chunk of Americans in their 40s are behind on retirement savings. Not because they're irresponsible, but because life got expensive fast. And the 401k was always the thing that felt like it could wait one more year. It can't wait anymore. So let's talk about the benchmark. The rule of thumb that most financial planners use goes something like this. By age 40, you should have roughly 3 times your annual salary saved for retirement. By 45, the target is closer to 4 times. By 50, 6 times. I know. Some of you just made a face. If you're at 40 with 1 times your salary saved, or less, that's the reality you're working with. And the worst thing you can do right now is feel so overwhelmed that you do nothing. Nothing is the only move that guarantees a bad outcome. Here's what catching up actually looks like. First, if your employer offers a 401k match, and you are not contributing enough to get the full match, stop the video. Right now, go fix that tomorrow morning. That match is 100% return on your money, immediately, before the market does a single thing. There is no investment on earth that competes with that. Getting the full match is non-negotiable. It is the floor, not the ceiling. Second, at 50, the IRS gives you what's called a catch-up contribution. In a standard 401k, the regular contribution limit is currently around $23,000 per year. But once you hit 50, you can throw in an extra $7,500 on top of that. Use it. Max it out if you possibly can. Third, and this is the part most people skip because it sounds boring, your asset allocation matters more now than it ever did. In your 20s, you could afford to be aggressive because you had decades to recover from a crash. In your 40s, you still need growth, but you also can't afford to have the market cut your savings in half right before you need it. A simple, low-cost index fund strategy built around something like an 80-20 or 70-30 split, 80% equities, 20% bonds, is where most people in their 40s should be sitting. Not 100% stocks. Not 50-50 like you're already retired. Something in between that still grows aggressively, but won't completely wipe you out if the market has a bad year. And please, stop paying high fees on actively managed mutual funds. Study after study shows that over a 10 to 20-year period, low-cost index funds beat the vast majority of actively managed funds. You are not paying for genius. You are paying for a guy in a nice suit to underperform the S&P 500 while charging you 1 to 2% a year for the privilege. Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab. Pick one. Open an account, buy a total market index fund, set it to auto-invest. Stop checking it every week. That's it. That is the strategy that has quietly made more ordinary people wealthy than almost anything else in the history of personal finance. The catch-up game in your 40s is not complicated. It just requires you to be ruthless about what you do with every extra dollar. And we'll talk about exactly where those extra dollars tend to disappear next. I want you to think back to when you were 28, maybe 30. You had less money. You drove a less impressive car. Your kitchen probably had appliances that were fine. Not great, just fine. And you were okay. You weren't miserable. You functioned as a human being. You ate food. You went places. You had people over. Now, fast forward to today. Your income has gone up significantly. And somehow, you're not saving dramatically more than you were back then. Where did it all go? That's lifestyle creep. And it is the single most socially acceptable way to stay broke. Here's how it works. Every time your income goes up, raise, bonus, promotion, side income, your spending quietly rises to meet it. A nicer car, a bigger house, better vacations, upgraded everything. None of it is outrageous on its own. None of it feels reckless. It all feels Earned. Because you did work hard. Because you did go through the grind. Because you look around at your colleagues and they all seem to be living this way too. And that last part is the trap. Because your colleagues might be completely broke behind a very convincing facade. The psychology here is real, and it is powerful. Humans are wired for social comparison. We anchor our sense of normal to the people around us. When everyone in your neighborhood drives a $50,000 SUV, a $50,000 SUV starts to feel like a reasonable, normal, middle-of-the-road choice. It doesn't feel like a luxury. It feels like keeping up. And the financial industry loves this about us. Car commercials don't sell you a car. They sell you an identity. Kitchen showrooms don't sell you a countertop. They sell you the feeling that your home finally reflects how successful you are. It's all designed, very deliberately designed, to make spending feel like self-expression and saving feel like deprivation. Here's the reframe. The kitchen remodel doesn't make you wealthy. The absence of the kitchen remodel, by investing that same $40,000 instead, might actually get you there. A $40,000 kitchen renovation, if it had been invested in a simple index fund for 15 years at a 7% average return, becomes roughly $110,000. That is not a kitchen. That is a meaningful chunk of your retirement. I'm not saying never improve your home. I'm not saying drive a car with a missing door handle for the rest of your life in the name of financial purity. I'm saying be intentional. Know what it's actually costing you. Not just today, but in 15 years. The rule I like is simple. Every time you get a raise, a windfall, or any meaningful increase in income, give yourself permission to spend 10 or 20% of that increase on lifestyle. Enjoy it. You earned it. But the other 80%, that goes to wealth building, debt payoff, index funds, emergency fund, future you. Because here's the thing about lifestyle creep that nobody tells you until it's too late. It's much, much easier to never upgrade your lifestyle than it is to downgrade it later. Humans adapt incredibly quickly to having more. We barely notice the upgrade after 6 months. But downsizing, going back to the smaller house, the older car, the simpler vacation, that stings. Psychologically, it feels like failure even when it's the smartest financial move you could make. Don't let your spending quietly grow to the ceiling of your income. Leave a gap. That gap is where wealth lives. Let's talk about the emergency fund. You've probably heard the standard advice 100 times. 3 months of expenses. Keep it in a savings account. Done. Move on. That advice is fine if you're 27 and work in tech, and your skills are so in demand that you could find another job in 3 weeks. But you're not 27, and the job market in your 40s operates by a completely different set of rules. Rules that most personal finance content conveniently forgets to mention. Here's the reality nobody wants to say out loud. Ageism in the workplace is real, it is pervasive, and it is almost impossible to prove in court. Companies don't put it in writing. They just mysteriously keep passing over the 47-year-old for the promotion. They restructure the department in a way that eliminates exactly one position. They bring in someone younger at a lower salary and call it a culture refresh. I'm not being cynical. I'm being accurate. Studies consistently show that job seekers over 45 take significantly longer to find new employment than their younger counterparts, even with better qualifications and more experience. The average job search for someone in their late 40s can stretch to 6, 8, sometimes 12 months. 3 months of savings doesn't cover a 12-month job search. It covers the beginning of one. And then you're raiding your retirement account, paying penalties and taxes to access your own money, just to keep the lights on. That is an entirely preventable disaster. This is why I call the 6-month emergency fund the few fund. Because what it actually buys you isn't just financial security. It's power. It's options. It's the ability to look at a bad situation, a toxic boss, a company circling the drain, a job offer that's technically fine but completely wrong, and say no. Walk away. Take your time. Make the right decision instead of the desperate one. Desperate financial decisions in your 40s have consequences that follow you for decades. The 6-month fund is what keeps you out of that corner. So what does this actually look like in practice? Take your total monthly expenses, mortgage or rent, utilities, food, insurance, minimum debt payments, everything, and multiply by 6. That is your target number, not 3, 6. Keep it in a high-yield savings account where it earns something while it sits there, but where it is also completely accessible within a day or two if you need it. Not in the market Not in a CD you can't touch for 18 months, liquid, available, ready. And I can already hear some of you saying, "But Professor Bill, if I'm building an emergency fund and paying off debt and contributing to retirement, where exactly is all this money coming from?" That is the right question. And the honest answer is that it comes from the gap you created by defeating lifestyle creep. It comes from the freed-up cash flow you unlocked by eliminating bad debt. These milestones are not random. They build on each other deliberately. You clear the debt, you close the lifestyle gap, and suddenly you have real money to work with. Money that used to evaporate into minimum payments and upgraded appliances. The order matters. The momentum is real. Keep going. All right, this is the part of the video where I talk about term life insurance and wills. I know, stay with me. This is genuinely the least exciting topic in personal finance. Nobody lies awake at night thinking, "I really need to get my estate documents in order." Nobody brags to their friends at dinner about finally getting their term life policy sorted. It doesn't feel urgent. It doesn't feel exciting. It feels like something you'll get around to eventually. And then eventually never comes. And someone you love pays the price for it. Let me give you the scenario that actually happens. Not the dramatic movie version. The quiet, ordinary version that plays out in real families every year. A 44-year-old guy, reasonably healthy, has a wife, 2 kids, a mortgage, has been meaning to look into life insurance for a while, but never quite got around to it. Dies unexpectedly. Heart attack, car accident, doesn't matter. And suddenly his family, who is already dealing with the worst thing that has ever happened to them, is also staring down a mortgage they can't cover on one income, college savings accounts that are basically empty, and a financial future that just got completely dismantled overnight. That is not a worst-case scenario. That happens to real people constantly. And in the vast majority of those cases, it was entirely preventable for roughly the cost of a dinner out every month. Term life insurance in your 40s is not complicated. You buy a 20-year term policy, enough to cover your income until your kids are grown and your mortgage is paid off. The death benefit should be somewhere between 10 and 15 times your annual income. If you make $80,000 a year, you want somewhere between $800,000 and $1.2 million in coverage. That sounds like an enormous number, and the monthly premium for a healthy person in their early to mid-40s is often somewhere between $50 and $100 a month. That's it, for over $1 million in protection. Now, if you smoke, if you have significant health issues, the numbers look different. But for a reasonably healthy person in their 40s, term life is still very affordable. The mistake is waiting. Every year you wait, the premiums go up. And if your health changes, if something gets flagged in a medical exam, you can suddenly find yourself uninsurable or paying dramatically more. Get it done now while you're still in a position to get good rates. And while we're here, let's talk about the will. Roughly 60% of American adults do not have a will. That includes a lot of people in their 40s who have kids, own property, and have retirement accounts. If you die without a will, the state decides what happens to your assets. The state decides a lot of things you probably have strong opinions about. And the process of sorting it all out, probate court, legal fees, family disputes, can drag on for years and cost your family tens of thousands of dollars. You need 4 documents: a will, a durable power of attorney, which designates someone to make financial decisions for you if you become incapacitated, a healthcare directive, which specifies your medical wishes if you can't communicate them yourself, and beneficiary designations on all of your accounts, 401k, IRA, life insurance, that are current and accurate. Because your beneficiary designations override your will. If your ex-spouse is still listed as the beneficiary on your 401k, they get the money. Doesn't matter what your will says. This is not a fun afternoon, sitting down with an estate attorney, going through all of this. It's uncomfortable and a little surreal, but it takes maybe 2 or 3 hours of your life, and it protects everything you have spent decades building. It protects the people you love from having to navigate a financial disaster on top of a personal one. Do it. Cross it off the list. And never think about it again, except to update it when your life changes. So there they are. 5 milestones. Eradicate the bad debt. Do the catch-up math and Actually start closing the gap. Defeat lifestyle creep before it quietly steals your future. Build the 6-month fund that gives you real power and real options. And protect everything you've built, for yourself and for the people depending on you. None of this is glamorous. None of it goes viral. You're not going to post about your index fund allocation and rack up 1,000 likes. But 10 years from now, when the people around you are panicking about retirement, or getting blindsided by a job loss, or realizing they spent 2 decades building a lifestyle instead of a foundation, you're going to be in a completely different position. Not because you were smarter, not because you made more money, but because you made different choices with the money you had, at the right time, when it still mattered. Here's what I want you to hold on to. It is not too late. I want to be genuinely clear about that. Not in a motivational poster on the wall of a dentist's office way, but in a mathematical, factual way. The decisions you make in the next 3 to 5 years have an enormous impact on where you land. The gap between where you are and where you need to be is absolutely closable. People do it every day. Not people with massive incomes or lucky stock picks, but ordinary people who got serious, got consistent, and stopped letting the urgent things crowd out the important ones. Your 40s are not the beginning of the end of your financial life. They are, if you decide to treat them that way, the beginning of the most intentional, most powerful financial chapter you've ever had. You have the income. You have the experience. You have the motivation. Otherwise, you wouldn't still be watching this. Now you have the roadmap. Go build something worth having. One last thing before you go. If this video gave you something real, a number that hit home, a strategy you're actually going to use, a conversation you know you need to have with your spouse or your financial advisor, I genuinely appreciate it if you'd hit the like button. It sounds like a small thing, but it tells the algorithm that this kind of content is worth showing to other people. And there are a lot of people in their 40s who need to hear this and have no idea this video exists. If you're not subscribed yet, consider it. We don't do hype here. We don't do get rich quick. We do real numbers, honest conversations, and content that actually tries to move the needle for regular people trying to figure this stuff out. And if something in this video hit you, if one of these milestones made you realize you've got some work to do, drop it in the comments. Tell me which one. I read them, and you might just remind someone else watching that they're not the only ones starting from behind. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you in the next one.